Hi there, thanks for joining me today. My name is Luke Bowen. I am one of the co-founders of Experiential Simulations, and this is one of our Startup Heroes and Heroines episodes. Now, to us, a startup hero or heroine is a professor all over the world who uses experiential learning, including simulations, to help create the next generation of entrepreneurs. Now, we have a great example of a startup hero today, Professor Andy Penaluna. We had a chance to chat with Andy so he could prove to us why he's one of our great startup heroes. Let's take a listen.
So thank you very much for talking to me today, Andy. So what is your story leading up to kind of where you are now? Where have you come from?
My background is as an artist and illustrator. But like any artist illustrator will tell you, the bigger money was in graphic design.
Right.
So I moved into graphic design, and then this is with a business. And when I got into graphic design, I found that new media was a way to go. So I moved up into that. I then moved into advertising and promotions in the business sense. And all alongside this, I've been teaching. I've been teaching in design school here in Swansea and previously down in Cornwall. And so everything I was doing in the real world, I was also trying to do with my students. If you know anything about the creative industries, you'll know that it's all about applying your creativity to other people's problems. Whereas many art departments, there's perhaps a perception they want to be creative and innovative, but they don't necessarily know how to apply those skills in, shall we say, an entrepreneurial sense. So my career, well, I was working with a great deal of students and came to a kind of an impasse in about 2004, where I tried to mix business school and art and design school classes together to make a new course. Little did I know that no one had achieved this before, and so it was a major change for me, and I became very, very reliant on my past students. The university sector is not familiar with that kind of mix. And I had to use about 300 of my past students to actually help me to make the argument that this was a good way to go. So I always call myself a student of my past students. So where do we go from there? Well, I became perhaps a little bit more academic. I also, by this stage, had completed a publishing company which went worldwide, 5-language distribution magazine. And I had to make a decision which way to go. So I made the decision to come into education a little bit more fully. When I got into education, like any academic, I was supposed to write academic papers. So what else should we write about? We wrote about how we learned from our past students, and we suddenly found ourselves in Brazil one day winning an academic award for the best, what they call empirical paper, which is the paper which is proven by evidence. And that was a lever into getting into enterprise and entrepreneurship education. Where that has taken me now, well, I'll jump ahead. Currently I'm working for the OECD in Germany, looking at about 38 countries, and yes, that sounds a lot. Actually helping them to develop criteria where teachers can assess their own abilities. I've also worked in Southeast Europe, developing teacher qualifications in enterprise and entrepreneurship. Here in the UK, I led a team that developed quality assurance work for enterprise and entrepreneurship education in the UK university sector. So I guess I'm applying those entrepreneurial skills in the university system now and beyond into schools. I hope that gives you some kind of insight.
Yeah, now you mentioned that one of the things that you're working on now is you kind of teach other teachers to go out there, and that you use experiential learning to do that. So can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yes, that's absolutely right. Again, without getting too academic, I'm quite keen on having teaching and learning that lines up with assessment. So I do recall having a conversation with my wife, who's also in enterprise and our enterprise manager, where she said to me when she first joined education, what exam will the students sit at the end? And I said, it depends what memory intensive, time intensive task you're going to give the students. That kind of illustrates that a lot of work that's done in the university sector is measured and assessed through written tests. Experiential learning gives you an opportunity to look at the students' behaviours, the way they react in situations, the way they respond to change. So if you've got a simulation of some sort, whether it be virtual or whether it be a simulation in a classroom, students can demonstrate what they can do, and you can work with them, you can work at the minutiae, the little detail that helps them to develop themselves as individuals, as opposed to merely being able to write about things. So I feel quite strongly that experiential learning is an important aspect.
And you use some gaming in your lectures too.
Yes, I'm currently working with a college university as well, and we use SimVenture, for example, which gives students the chance to sit down and try and pitch and try to develop their own business ideas, and there's little things that come in and trip them up and such like. I've also worked with another university in Leeds, Leeds and Portsmouth, where we developed, based on that quality assurance work I was telling you about, an online platform. I say we, sorry, I'm the external examiner, as it were, I'm not the person who originated it. But what they are doing there, and I'm hopefully helping them with, is they've created an online platform which is an imaginary town. And the students have to log on to the local newspaper, which is also imaginary, but feels very real. Mm-hmm. So they will have to go in, find out where the business opportunities are in that town. So be entrepreneurial, and then they'll get an email, so we say even 2 o'clock in the morning, by somebody saying, wow, the budget has been cut, or there's been a problem, or maybe there's been a success. So the students have to be agile thinkers and shift and change according to the situations they find themselves in. When they make phone calls, in most universities you'll be making a phone call, it's very unlikely you'll be making an actual phone call. But in this situation what they do is the two universities working on this, Portsmouth and Leeds, they use the lecturers from the other university. So if a student makes a phone call, they're speaking to a total stranger. So that also helps the simulation of reality in an entrepreneurial situation. So these are the kind of projects that I've been working on and trying to develop the reality feel to these kinds of learning situations.
That's quite an extensive simulation that is set up.
Yes, as I said, I can't lay claim for it. My colleagues in those two universities have done it, but that's an example of the way that in the UK we are looking very much at the two aspects of entrepreneurship. First and foremost, we've separated out, this is across every institution in the UK now, we've separated out what we call enterprise and what we call entrepreneurship. I have to be careful here to make sure that our definitions, and other people might slightly disagree with the language, but the intention is that we separate out creative thinking, opportunity recognition and things like that from more mundane tasks, like being able to prepare and develop a business plan and be able to measure financial forecast against a business plan. So an entrepreneur, and in this way, would be the person who could make a business happen, who could do those kinds of things, understand the finances well, whereas an enterprising person is that keen, enthusiastic, passionate person who will actually go ahead, try things, be resilient, be creative, adjust, shift, be determined. Two go together, they clearly do. But the enterprising person is the person who makes things happen, and the entrepreneurship skills, we think, are the skills that enable them to do so. So it's people skills and business skills.
So with all this, you're teaching teachers, you're using gaming, and you're learning from your past students. Where would you like all of these projects to head in the future? Is there one big goal that you would like to accomplish or use to change the industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just changing the industry. This is going to sound very grand. I'm hoping that we're going to help to change the world. If you look at the way that young people learn and the way that we're talking about things here, I can actually kind of pin it down to a quite simple thing, and that's the way that students are evaluated. Now, if you talk about implementation, you're talking about what happens most of the time. The students are given a task and then they just go away and do it. And they're told what to do, they're told what the problem is, and they go away and implement it. If you're talking innovation, we go back to these skills we were talking about just now. You have to pitch, you have to be able to shift your position, you have to be able to adjust, and that's quite a different skill set. So working with the OECD and working with the United Nations, we've had the chief of the United Nations Enterprise Division here working with us. And working with them, we're looking to develop what we call base of the pyramid education, which is going to help developing countries and people who don't have the resource that maybe we have, because they're going to have to be these really agile thinkers. And how are they going to get that? Well, they can be in disparate places all over the world, whether it be in South America, Africa, or what have you. Most of them now have access to a mobile phone. So if we can find technologies that is going to work in those situations and apply the thinking I've just described, we hope we're going to really help young people around the world to develop.
That's quite an amazing dream, and it's something I believe that is quite achievable as well, especially with the way technology is going.
Well, I think the technology is one thing, but it's also back down to the educators. And you'll see a whole raft of things now coming out about design thinking, for example. Some years ago I worked with some colleagues at Stanford, who've actually pushed that ahead, and the Idea Company. And this is very much where we're coming from. It's a mix of enabling through technology, but also understanding the fundamental things that are needed. For example, here in London just recently, Oxford University and Deloitte have actually looked at the career paths of people in London. And they forecast through automation that within 20 years, 30% of the existing jobs are simply not going to be there. Things will change. And the things they're looking for are exactly the qualities I talked about just now. I've actually got the report in front of me, and if I can quote from it, this actually says, we need jobs that require digital know-how, creativity, management, and entrepreneurship. So those are the very same things.
Yes.
So if we're looking at the changing landscape and we're looking at how technology can help, we have to be aware of the shortfalls of technology too, through automation. So again, we need these people who are going to be the thinkers who can work with the new technological advances.
And what report is that you have?
I have, it's by Deloitte, which is a financial company with the support of Oxford University, two colleagues who've prepared this. And it's called London Futures, Agile Town, the Relentless March of Technology and London's Response. So this is very recent, this is in the last few weeks. So this is the kind of research. There is a similar report also done for the United States, by the way. And the report there points out that the US is in a less fortunate position than the UK in terms of the education systems and the way they can support these things. So if you like, I'll email them over.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. I know that you've had a lot of students over your career. Is there one who really stands out as succeeding as a result of the guidance you have given them?
Yeah, that's such a difficult question.
I know.
Because so many students, I'm an old guy, 57 now, he spent most of his life teaching. But just recently, I guess this is because of this week as well, and the events that happened this week, so there's a couple of students, if I can maybe speak on them as if they were one.
Sure, yeah.
This is because they're a couple who came together at university. So John Dawkins, who runs a company called Dirty Little Serifs, which is a design company specialising in typography and design. And there's Heidi Griffith, who's Lola and me, and she runs a sort of fashion and branding company. They work the two together, and as it happens, in October of this year, they both won Voice Magazine's V Awards, one for the Business Startup of the Year and one for the Online Retailer of the Year. Now, these are past students who this week, John in particular, has come back in and helped us to teach our own students. And I think this is very important, that if you're in an education situation, as I am in a university, who better to value the type of things you're doing than your own past students? Yes, we can look at government reports, yes, we can look at other things that say how well you're doing. But bottom line, if you're not pleasing your past students and you're not learning from them, then you're really missing an opportunity to move ahead. So these two, John and Heidi, have been fantastic in actually helping us by coming in and actually learning to be teachers as well as developing their own businesses. So they're taking the skills that they've got from business, they're taking the skills from running sort of award-winning companies, and then they're learning the teaching side. So they're really rounded and they're really helpful. So I guess that's why they come to mind.
That's amazing. That's a great story, especially with the two of them together.
Yes, it is, isn't it? They tend to spend the time between the two companies working it together. I'm looking at manufacturing and expansion now.
Wow.
But they're very focused on people and how they work with people, whether it be through the internet or face-to-face. I think, we can learn a lot from people like that, people who are people, people who can go out and communicate well. Something we always say, by the way, is associated with that in our classes and our teaching. If you've got something really creative and innovative, simply ask the question how predictable it was. And I'd put to you that anyone who's got a great new idea will tell you something that you hadn't predicted. This gives us a problem, because simply put, you have to be able to communicate that to people in ways they understand. These two are experts at that. They constantly innovate, come up with new ideas, and they communicate it wonderfully. As I said, through medium of face-to-face and also through online media. So I'm impressed by them.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all that with me, Andy. It's been fantastic.
I hope it helps, and if together we can help the community in education, especially to understand the enterprise and entrepreneurship agenda, bearing in mind the definitions I gave you from the UK. I think it's really important that we will pull our resources together and make sure these messages are heard.
Yes, I was just going to ask you if you had one last message.
Okay, well, one last message from me is, if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're an educator, perhaps think back to what I was saying about this predictability. That you want students who are agile thinkers. You want people who are going to respond to change. If you don't give them those opportunities in your classrooms and through the environments you help them teach, whether it be working with real companies, working with businesses, if they don't have that flexibility and adaptability in their education, when are they going to learn it?
It's a good question to leave us with.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jasmine.
Thank you very much, Andy, and I hope that you get a lot of response and a lot of success in your future endeavors.
And you too. Thanks very much indeed.
Well, thank you very much, Jasmine, and thank you very much, Andy. We are going to continue to profile our startup heroes and heroines in episodes in the coming weeks. Until then. And don't forget to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, WordPress, and of course at experientialsimulations.com.